So I want to walk you through the steps of this image. I really liked what was happening. I loved how everything was just falling apart, and we have this classic bug here with the flat front tire, the walls missing paneling, and the insulation falling out. It's just a great series of textures. There's some good color that I'll be able to pop out in that sky and some great detail. So that's what I'm thinking about here. So I'm in the Adobe Camera Raw. Let me grab the white balance tool to start. It's up in the menu, third tool from the left. You can see it up there. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to look for something that's neutral. And I'm going to click around until I get a tone that I like. So I started with the house. I'm going to hop over here to the car. Not seeing a lot of difference as I move around. Up, that's making it a little cooler when I got down here onto the panel of the car versus over here. So if you end up with it a little too cool or a little too warm, you can always go over here to the temperature slider and just give it a little bit of a tweak. So I like it a little bit on the warmer side. That's a personal taste. You don't want it too cool. You don't want it too warm. You want it just right. And there is some variations in there for what can be just right. So that's up to your style. So whatever you do, you want to be consistent from image to image so that they'll hold together as a series. Okay, so now that I've set my white balance, I'm going to look at that histogram. It's pretty nice. It's spread all the way out across everything. So I'm not worried about trying to expand to my whites or my blacks. But what I would like is to pull out a little bit more detail in the shadow area. So I'm going to come down here to the shadow slider and see what happens when I push. And if I go extreme, you can see it starts to break up and I start to get a little bit more noise. So I'm going to pull that back down. I'm going to try to find that happy middle ground there. And somewhere in there is looking good. There do not appear to be too many highlights in here, but just for kicks, I'll move the highlight slider just to see if that's giving me a look that I like. It's helping to push my contrast a little bit. So that's looking pretty good. My blacks look pretty black. If I come over here under the car, you can see my RGB values are 5, 4, and 2. So I've got a nice black going in there. Where I think there might be a white through here, we're 239, 236, 231. Not too bad. Let's see what's happening over here. 248, 248, 247. Those are acceptable parameters. That's going to be the spot that I have to worry about. Right there, I'm up to 253, 253, 253. So let's do a little trick. Let's hop over here to the curves. And we're going to click point curve. In the top right of this point, we're just going to pull it down till it reads an output of 250. Not 251, but I can just come in here and type in a 0. 250. Well, maybe I can't do that. 250. Not 249. The fun, the fun. Okay. There we go. Now, when I go back over here to these areas, it's going to pull that white down a little bit further. So if we do that, here's our specular highlight just shining out there. So nothing is going to go over 250, which means that we will be able to lay down ink on our page while we're printing. So it's going to give us better print quality. So that's looking pretty good. So let's go back to the basics panel. And I cranked up my clarity a little bit. It was already up there because I played with this, but I forgot to bring it back down. So I was in the 36 range a minute ago, I think. Let's see what happens when I push it even further. I'm liking it grittier, which then lets me maybe push that shadow a little bit. Okay, so this is looking pretty good right now. I'm going to open the image. If I double click on the hand tool, it fills the image within the screen. And I think that I would like to crop this image to a square. I think it would add some nice tension. I don't need the tree coming in as much from the side. So let's see what happens when I do that. So I'm going to go grab the crop tool. And I'm going to come up here to the menu, to the options menu, and pick a 1-to-1 square. And then I'm going to kind of see what I want to do in here. Because I really want to show the car. And I really want to show that insulation on the other side of the image. So I'm thinking that's looking pretty good. Let's see here. I might tweak it a titch more, something like that. Let's see. Decisions. A little bit there, a little bit more here. I think I'll give it a little bit more there. To set this in place, all I do is hit the options key. I'm going to take a quick look around, make sure I didn't drag it out of the crop box. And I hit the return key. In theory, you hit the return key. There we go. Okay, so that looks like a pretty nice crop. So we went from, I think my batteries are going on my keyboard. So we went from here to here, and that's looking a lot better from here to here. I like how it's pulling everything in. There's more tension being created. You start to make more comparisons in here of what's happening, less room for our eye to move around. So saying that, I'm going to come over here and grab my clone stamp tool, and I'm going to want to clone this out. So I'm going to make that larger. And my keyboard really did go dead, so let me catch back up with you in a second. Batteries are replaced. So I was going to remove this area over here because it's distracting. This is not a news document, so I'm an artist, and I have no problem with removing areas like this. So I'm going to use the clone stamp tool and just kind of come through here like so. And I'm looking at all the details while I'm working on this stuff. I keep resetting my source point. And all that fun. I'm going to leave those power lines. Make it even bigger. Set a source point here. Just kind of rebuild that. Set the source point here. And rebuild that. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's see here. Do we find anything else offensive while I'm on this tool? I could remove that, but I think it kind of adds to the scene over there, so I'm not as concerned about that. I'm just going to give a quick look-see down through here, and I don't think there's anything else I'm too terribly worried about wanting to remove on this, because a lot of what we want to do is show the old beat-up parts of this. So the trash and the dirt all over the car, those are perfectly acceptable things. So that's looking pretty good, I think. I also think that I might want to, I might want to add a black and white, make this image black and white. So I've cropped it, I did a little bit of retouching, and to do the black and white, I'm just going to come over here to the adjustments, and I'm going to do a black and white adjustment, and by default it throws things to black and white. I can use the targeted adjustment tool here and click on areas to lighten and darken. So this is the red areas, so you can see what it's doing back there on the wood as well as the car. We're not getting a lot happening here with the car. As I click around, this is the blues, so the sky is changing when I change the blues. Into the yellows here. I think that's looking pretty nice there. I do think I want a little bit more contrast on this, so I'm going to add another adjustment layer, and I'm going to do a curve this time. And looking at that, looking pretty good. I'm going to grab my targeted adjustment tool, and I'm going to look and see around here. I'm going to come down here into this dark area, and I'm going to pull this down. See how that's making it darker? And then I'm going to go find a lighter area, and I'm going to pull that up. So now you can see we've gone from this to this. I have to dial it in. It's a little bit too much now. So I can come over here into what I've laid down, and I can just kind of finesse it like so. Now, one of the things that's happening is I think I'm losing too much here in the wheel. So because this has an adjustment layer built in, I'm going to grab my brush tool, and I'm going to make it big. And I'm going to paint with black, not white. So I'm going to hit X on my keyboard to toggle between black and white. And I'm also going to take my opacity down to 50%. There we go. Now you can start to see that tire coming back in here. So now I'm using a selective adjustment. Okay. I'm going to pull that off of here as well. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Looking much better. I'm losing a little bit up in here as well, so I think I'll pull some of that adjustment off of this area. And to see that, I'm just clicking my eyeball on and off here to see how things are looking. And as I click on it more times, I'm just building that up. So even though I have 50%, I'm just kind of going to build that up a little bit more, like so. Then I'm going to do another curve adjustment layer. And I'm going to use that targeted adjustment tool again. And I'm going to think about, really concentrate on this plywood area. I think I like that being contrastier. So before we just painted on the white because we wanted to affect the whole, this time I'm just going to invert that layer mask. I'm going to grab the paintbrush and I'm going to paint with white this time and try to bring out a little bit more contrast in there. If I want this to go a little bit faster, I think I'm just going to grab the polygonal lasso tool and make a selection here of this piece of plywood. And then I can just grab the paint bucket tool and drop in white. Let's see what's that mask's looking like. Not looking too terribly good because I had painted earlier, so I'm just going to grab that, take it back up to 100% and just kind of crank over the whole thing like so. And then it's keeping me within that area. So Command D to get rid of the dancing ants. Let's shrink this down again and see what that's doing. Oh, so that's popping it out nicely. If I thought it was too much, I can always come back in here and dial in the look that I want. Now that I have more contrast there also, I can just go and paint wherever I want to bring out a little bit more contrast. And with the contrast, it's bringing out more of that texture too. So I think that's looking pretty good. Let's come over here and try it on here. And I'm clicking at one point and then I'm holding the shift key. So I'm kind of, you guys might remember that from a few other projects we've done. I'm going to make this bigger now and just paint away. So you can see adding some nice contrast in there. Now, let's see here. I think I may have overdone that a little bit, so I'm going to take it down to 50%. I'm going to make my brush bigger. And I'm just going to, maybe not that big. And I'm going to paint with black just to pull that off a little bit. That looks pretty good. Remember, partial opacity will let a partial amount of the adjustment come through. And I'm going to go back to the brush, go back to black, and I'm going to be at 50%, and I'll paint this side as well. Let's see if I like how that's looking. Looks like I have a really hard brush, you guys, so let's, and I do, so let's go fix that. Over here in my brush menu, I can just slide that over to 100%. Most of the time when I'm painting like this, I don't want a hard edge because I want to blend. Obviously, it wasn't an issue with the hard edge that we had over there or the hard edge we had for that other panel. But over through here, I think I will be happier if it is not. And I just pulled a little bit of that off here. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. Hit X. Kind of go under here and see what we can do here. Let's see what happens if we add a little bit more contrast to this area. So I'm really going in and dialing in where I want areas to pop. Of course, we don't want things to pop too much. Oh, that looks really bad. Way too much. We lost a bunch of the detail there. Wow, who knew that was going to look so bad? If I want to adjust the contrast there, I can come back here one more time, do a curve. And you see how I'm just targeting that one area. I'm just only looking at that. Do Command I to hide that. Grab my brush tool now. And wherever I paint in this shadow area, it's going to pop out more detail as well. Okay, so I think that's looking pretty good. Yeah, painting away here. That might be a little too much. We'll have to take a look at that in a second as a whole. Let's make that smaller. So I think what I'm going to do there is I'm going to do that 50% trick, hit X, pull a little bit of that off of there. Kind of like how it's popping a little bit, give it a little bit more access. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go back up to 100% and I'm going to paint with white under here and have a little bit of that pop out a little bit more as well. Maybe a little bit more there. So you can start to see, oh, too much there, Command Z. Let's do our own curve for that area. Make it darker, come up here, make it brighter. So obviously that's too much for the hole still, so we're gonna do Command I, grab the brush, find our way over here. We're gonna paint with white and just add a little bit more contrast through there. I think that's looking pretty good actually. I'm gonna add it a little bit onto the car too. Okay, so it's getting a little too much up here. So I'll pull that off. Looking pretty good. Let's check our info panel here for a second. See what we're looking at. 243 in there. That's looking pretty good. We knew that this was the offender over here earlier. That's 252. That'll be a quick fix right at the end. Let's see what this is looking like up here. 247, 245. Not bad. So this is going to print up nicely. Okay, so we started here. And this is where we're at right now. Let's take a quick look. So we added a black and white. We did a curve to add some contrast. Then we added a little bit more contrast to those windows and plywood areas. We popped out a little bit more detail with contrast in the shadow area of the car. And lastly, I just added a little bit more contrast over in the bottom panels of the car. And I think I'm going to see what happens if I paint in a little bit in here. I might pop out that window a little bit. That might be kind of nice. Let's see what happens if we come through here a little bit as well. And I'm on that top layer still. So by targeting things, I can really direct the eye of the car. And I like what that's doing in the car. So that's looking pretty good. The last thing I want to do is I want to add a border. And we haven't really done that yet. So let's do it right now. We've got an assignment coming up with a border. So I created a new blank layer. You always want to put your borders on their own layer. I'm going to do Command A. Command A makes a selection. You can see the dancing ants going all the way around. So you can either do Command A or select all. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go to Edit, Stroke. And in Stroke, I don't want red, I want black. Remember, black is an RGB value of 0, 0, 0. 5 pixels seems pretty good for right now. I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to hit OK once more. I'm going to hit Command D to get rid of that. And now I have a nice little black border containing my image. And I'm pretty happy with this. So have fun and give this a try. Okay, I let it sit for a minute and then I came back to it and I decided I really wanted to darken up some of the edges. So I created another curves, and you can see on this curve I just pulled those darks down. And let's look back up here at the layer mask. I'm just going to option click on the layer mask, and this is what it looks like. So wherever you see the white, that's where the most adjustment is happening, and where you see the black, no adjustment is happening. So I'm really darkening up all those edges. You can see that little whitish gray line to the right. That's the window of the car. On the left, that's the bottom of the house going into that bag. And then pulled the darkness off the shadow because it made the shadow lose its detail. And we took some time to make that shadow detail pop out. But darkening up the rocks at the bottom adds weight to the image. So let's click back here again, and you can see what it looks like. So we went from this, when I left you a minute ago, to this with one more click, and I think that's looking a little bit more dramatic. And now I think this is where I'm going to finally call it done. So go play and have fun.